When a man hurts you, confuse him like this vertical bar Carl Jung philosophy. The game of power. Have you ever noticed what happens the moment someone breaks you? Your first instinct is to prove that you matter. You want to show your value. You want him to see your tears, to feel your pain, to understand your worth. You cry, you explain, you beg. But here's the brutal truth Carl Jung revealed. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And this is exactly what happens in heartbreak. When you react blindly, when you rush to defend yourself, when you try to explain your value to the one who devalued you, you are no longer in control. You are trapped in the unconscious. You're dancing in his rhythm, not yours. And that's how you hand him the power he never deserved. The real power? It's not in shouting. It's not in proving. It's not in chasing. The real power is when you confuse him with stillness, when your silence becomes heavier than his noise, when your calmness feels like thunder, when your dignity makes his games irrelevant. This is not weakness. This is self-mastery. Because the most dangerous person is not the one who reacts fast, but the one who breathes, waits, and chooses their move with wisdom. That person cannot be controlled. That person becomes unpredictable. That person becomes untouchable. And today we are going to dive into Carl Jung's philosophy to understand exactly how to transform heartbreak into raw power, how to turn your silence into a storm, and how to make confusion your greatest weapon. Chapter 1. Pain is a teacher, not your identity. Pain always feels personal. When someone betrays you, abandons you, or shatters the promises they once made, your heart screams, "Why me? What did I do wrong?" The mind rushes to blame itself, because that feels easier than facing the chaos of unanswered questions. But this is where Carl Jung's wisdom enters like a guiding light. He reminds us that pain is not your identity. It is simply an experience. You are not broken. You are simply being reshaped. Carl Jung warned us, emotions are not absolute truth. They are like weather, passing storms across the sky of your being. One moment, heavy rain, the next moment, clear skies. The problem is, when you confuse the weather with who you are, you start believing, I am sadness, I am unworthy, I am rejection itself. But in reality, you are not the storm. You are the vast sky that holds it. The storm comes and goes, but the sky always remains untouched, limitless, infinite. Think of a woman left without explanation. At first, she spirals into blame. She replays conversations in her mind, searching for where she went wrong. Every word, every look, every silence becomes evidence against her. But one day, she shifts. Instead of asking, "Why did he leave?" she asks, "What am I feeling right now?" This question is powerful because it turns the spotlight inward, away from him and back toward her own awareness. She notices her body, cold hands, a tight chest, shallow breath. These sensations were always there, but she never paid attention. She thought the suffering was about him, but in reality, it was the way her nervous system was interpreting him. Suddenly, she realizes the truth. The suffering is not him. It is the meaning she attached to him, and this is the very doorway Jung spoke of. When you shift focus from the person to the feeling, you break free from illusion. This shift is everything, because now pain is no longer a prison, it becomes a teacher. Pain is not here to destroy you, it is here to reveal you. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every loss carries a hidden message. It whispers, "Look deeper. There is something within you that needs to be seen." Jung believed that the unconscious speaks through suffering. When you stop running from pain and start listening to it, you turn wounds into wisdom. Let's be clear. This doesn't mean ignoring pain. It means transforming your relationship with it. When you say, "This pain is happening to me," you become a victim. But when you say, "This pain is teaching me something," you become a student of life. And a student will always grow. Suddenly, heartbreak becomes a lesson in self-worth. Betrayal becomes a lesson in boundaries. Rejection becomes a lesson in redirection. Pain stops being identity and becomes your curriculum for power. Jung's philosophy shows us that suffering is never random. Every storm you go through reveals a hidden part of yourself. Maybe you discover resilience you never knew existed. Maybe you find self-respect that was buried under years of seeking validation. Maybe you awaken a silence inside you that is louder than any apology he could ever give. Pain strips away illusions and leaves behind truth. And the truth is this: you were always more powerful than you believed. So the next time pain visits you, do not wear it as your name. Don't say, "I am broken." Say instead, "I am learning." Don't say, "I am abandoned." Say instead, "I am being redirected." This is the shift that Carl Jung wanted us to see. You are not the story of your heartbreak. You are the awareness behind it. You are not the wound. You are the healer in the making. And once you embrace this, pain no longer defines you. It refines you. Chapter 2. Silence as Power. The world has trained us to believe that strength is loud. Society tells women, if he hurts you, scream. If he betrays you, fight. If he leaves, flood him with long messages that beg, explain, or accuse. This is the predictable script of pain, the emotional theater everyone expects. But here's the truth Jung revealed. When you follow the script of noise, you are not in power. You are simply performing in a play someone else has written for you. Carl Jung believed in paradox, the hidden power of opposites. True strength doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers, sometimes it doesn't even speak. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. Imagine this. He expects your breakdown. He is waiting for your texts, your tears, your endless explanations, but instead he gets stillness. The drama he prepared for never arrives. And in that moment, the stage collapses. His performance loses its meaning. This is the secret. When you stop reacting, you break the script. And when you break the script, you take control of the story. He looks for drama but finds a mirror, your calm presence reflecting his chaos back to him. Suddenly, he doesn't know what role to play. Is he the villain, the hero, the victim? Without your emotional energy feeding his game, he is lost in his own silence. And that confusion is where your power begins. Understand this clearly. Silence is not absence. Silence is psychological warfare. When you remain calm, you don't give him what he wants, your energy. You deny him the stage. And this denial is more powerful than any insult, any confrontation, any revenge plan. Jung would call this individuation, choosing to stand as your true self, unshaken, instead of becoming the puppet of someone else's chaos. Silence is your declaration of freedom. Think of how predictable anger is. When you shout, he smirks. When you cry, he feels validated. When you send long messages, he feels important. But when you say nothing, he cannot read you. He cannot predict you. He cannot control you. That is why silence feels heavier than words. Words can be twisted, screenshots can be shared, but silence lingers in his mind, like a shadow he cannot escape. Psychologically, silence is a mirror. It forces the other person to face themselves without distraction. Your stillness reflects his noise. Your calmness exposes his insecurity. Your refusal to engage shines a light on his immaturity. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But here's the twist. When you are silent, you force him to confront that irritation within himself, and he doesn't like what he sees. Silence also protects your dignity. It says, "I am too valuable to waste my breath on chaos," and that, my friend, is the highest form of self-respect. Because the more you explain, the more you hand away your power. But the less you explain, the more mysterious, powerful, and untouchable you become. People may not remember your words, but they will never forget the silence that followed their betrayal. So the next time pain knocks on your door, remember this. Silence is not empty. Silence is strategy. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strength disguised. Silence is not surrender. Silence is self-mastery. And when you learn to wield silence, you confuse every manipulator, every liar, every betrayer, not with rage but with dignity. Because in the end, silence is not the absence of power. Silence is the power. Chapter 3. The Mirror of Non-Reaction. Carl Jung's shadow theory unlocks the secret of why non-reaction is such a devastating weapon. The shadow is the dark side of human nature, the insecurities, fears, and wounds that people refuse to acknowledge. Instead of facing their own darkness, they project it outward. They hurt others, mock them, belittle them, not because of who you are, but because of what they are running from inside themselves. When he hurts you, he is not actually speaking to you. He is speaking to his own shadow. He expects you to react, to cry, to argue. Why? Because your chaos distracts him from confronting his emptiness. Your reaction gives him a shield. As long as you are exploding, he doesn't have to face himself. But when you refuse to react, when you stand silent and calm, his projection collapses. Suddenly, the mirror he built to avoid himself turns around and shows him his own reflection. This is the essence of psychological warfare, non-reaction. Imagine his ego as a fire that feeds on oxygen. Your anger, your tears, your explanations, that is oxygen. But your silence, that is suffocation. The fire begins to die. The manipulator is left choking on his own emptiness. Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, and your silence forces him to face that irritation, not in you, but in himself." Consider the story of a woman at a dinner party. Her partner mocked her intelligence in front of everyone. In the past, she would defend herself, argue, prove her worth. But this time, she did something revolutionary. She simply smiled, turned to another friend, and changed the subject. That silence echoed louder than any argument could. The room noticed. He noticed. His mockery was exposed for what it was, insecurity dressed as humor. Why was this so powerful? Because she broke the script. He expected her defense, her tears, maybe even a scene. Instead, he got a calm mirror that reflected his pettiness back at him. That single act of non-reaction forced him to see himself without distraction. Silence here was not passive. It was active. It was deliberate. It was a psychological strike, and everyone at the table felt it. The absence of drama became the presence of dignity. Non-reaction is not suppression, it is transformation. When you refuse to react, you are not ignoring your pain. You are mastering it. You are telling your nervous system, "We don't need to fight every battle. Some wars are won by refusing to play the game." This is not weakness, this is higher intelligence. It confuses manipulators, disarms aggressors, and elevates you above the theater of chaos. You become untouchable because nothing rattles you. Think about it. The world is addicted to reaction. Social media thrives on outrage. Relationships collapse under constant emotional theater. But the rare soul who chooses calm over chaos, that person becomes magnetic. They carry a weight that words cannot match. Their silence becomes an unshakable mirror, one that forces people to confront truths they would rather run from. And that is why non-reaction is not just defense, it is dominance. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their storm, remember Jung's wisdom. Projection only survives with your participation. If you don't feed it, it dies. If you don't react, they are left standing face to face with their own shadow. That is the mirror of non-reaction. It is not about ignoring the insult. It's about rising above it so completely that the insult loses all meaning. Silence in that moment becomes your ultimate revenge and your ultimate power. Chapter 4. Sacred Withdrawal. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." These words reveal the hidden power of withdrawal. Society has trained us to think that stepping back is weakness, that silence means surrender, that walking away is failure. But Jung flips the script. Withdrawal is not running from life. It is returning to yourself. It is reclaiming your soul from the noise of someone else's chaos. Withdrawal doesn't look like dramatic exits. It looks sacred. It looks like closing your eyes in the middle of conflict, breathing deeply, and refusing to waste your energy explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Because no explanation will ever be enough for someone who doesn't want to understand. Sacred withdrawal is choosing peace over performance, clarity over chaos, self-respect over validation. Picture this. He thought you would beg. He thought you would flood his phone with long messages, demand closure and prove your worth. Instead, you withdraw. You stop giving him the stage. You stop feeding his ego. You walk by the lake. You write in your journal. You listen to the whispers of your own body. That simple act of self-return is not weakness. It is power. Because now, he no longer controls the script. Withdrawal interrupts the cycle of blame, defense, chasing, and disappointment. Every manipulator thrives on your reaction, but sacred withdrawal breaks the chain. It is you saying, "I am not playing this game anymore." Suddenly, the one who thought he held power is left standing alone on a battlefield with no opponent. That silence confuses him more than anger ever could, because he can no longer predict you. Think of withdrawal as coming home, not to a place, but to yourself, to your breath, your body, your truth. When you sit by the water, or take a walk in the park, or write your raw emotions onto paper, you are reclaiming your center. Jung believed individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires moments of solitude. Sacred withdrawal is exactly that, a return to the authentic self that no betrayal can erase. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing his approval, he feels your absence louder than your presence. He expected drama, but got stillness. He expected weakness, but found dignity. He expected a victim, but encountered a woman who knows her worth. This reversal shakes him, because now instead of being the author of your pain, he is forced to watch as you write a new story, one without him. Sacred withdrawal is not isolation. It is recalibration. It is where you stop asking, "Mum, why did he leave?" and start asking, "What do I need right now?" Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's sleep. Maybe it's movement. Maybe it's creation. Withdrawal is the art of filling yourself with yourself again until the emptiness becomes fullness, until the wound becomes wisdom. This is how pain transforms into strength. So the next time betrayal strikes, don't run after the one who hurt you. Withdraw into yourself, close your eyes, breathe, reconnect. Because the highest power is not in proving your value to him, but in remembering your value to yourself. That is sacred withdrawal. It is not escape. It is evolution. And in that stillness, you confuse him, you disarm him, and you rise above him. Because the one who comes home to themselves can never be broken again. Chapter 5. Energy is currency. Every text you send, every tear you cry, every explanation you repeat, it's all energy spent. And energy is the most expensive currency you own. Unlike money, you cannot earn it back overnight. Once it's gone, it's gone. Jung warned us, unconscious people feed on your energy because they don't know how to create their own. Instead of facing their shadow, their emptiness, their pain, they plug into you like a parasite. This is why reacting drains you. Each angry reply, each desperate message, each sleepless night is an unspoken transaction. You are paying with your energy while they are feeding their ego. You think you're defending yourself, but what you're really doing is funding their avoidance. They don't face their darkness because your reactions give them a distraction. Jung would call this projection. They dump their shadow onto you so they don't have to carry it themselves. But here's the twist. When you stop reacting, you disrupt the trade. Suddenly the shop is closed, the bank is locked, the transaction denied. Your silence becomes your currency. Your dignity becomes your savings account. Your calmness becomes wealth. This is when the tables turn, because now the one who thought they were profiting off your chaos is left bankrupt in their own emptiness. And trust me, nothing terrifies a manipulator more than emotional bankruptcy. Think about it. He sends a cruel text expecting you to respond with 3 paragraphs. That response would have cost you energy, time, and peace. But instead, you say nothing. That silence is the bill he cannot pay. He pokes at your insecurities to get a reaction. But when you don't react, the mirror flips, and he is forced to sit alone with his own shadow. That silence is louder than 1,000 arguments. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Your reactions are how unconscious people control your fate. But the moment you withdraw your energy, you step out of their spell. Suddenly you are not their puppet anymore. Your silence tells him, "You don't own access to me anymore." And that statement, though unspoken, cuts deeper than any scream ever could. Energy is life force. It is the breath in your lungs, the calm in your chest, the fire in your spirit. When you waste it on someone who thrives on drama, you are literally giving away your life. But when you conserve it, when you guard it, When you invest it back into yourself, you become unstoppable. You start creating instead of reacting. You start building instead of breaking. Your silence becomes the seed of your rebirth. This is why no response is sometimes the most powerful response, because silence is not nothing. Silence is everything. It is your boundary, your protection, your declaration. My energy is mine, not yours. And the beauty is, silence doesn't just protect you, it starves the manipulator. Without your energy, their shadow rises. Without your attention, their ego collapses. Without your reaction, their game ends. So remember this. Every word you speak is currency. Every tear you cry is currency. Every reaction you give is currency. Spend it wisely. Because when you choose silence, you are not being passive. You are making the most powerful investment. You are investing in yourself. And in the end, the one who controls their energy controls the game. That's why silence isn't empty. Silence is the richest currency of all. Chapter 6. Boundaries without explanation. Most people believe boundaries must be justified. They write long paragraphs, explain their pain, defend their decision. I need space because you hurt me. I won't answer calls because I feel drained. But here's the truth Jung's philosophy exposes. Real boundaries don't require explanations. The moment you start justifying, you are no longer protecting your energy. You are negotiating it. Boundaries are not negotiations. Boundaries are declarations. Carl Jung taught us that true power is energetic, not verbal. When you say nothing but act with clarity, the message is stronger than any explanation. Words invite arguments. Energy closes the door. The one who disrespected you will always try to debate your reasons, twist your words, or guilt-trip you into lowering the boundary. But silence? Silence is unshakable. Silence leaves no crack for manipulation to crawl through. Think about it. You don't owe anyone a paragraph for why you didn't pick up the phone at 2 a.m. The fact that you didn't pick up is enough. You don't need to explain why you won't tolerate disrespect. The fact that you walked away is enough. The act itself is the explanation. When your actions carry dignity, they speak louder than 1,000 justifications, and in that silence, your boundary becomes law. Jung would say this is individuation, becoming whole by refusing to live in the expectations of others. When you stop explaining yourself, you step out of the role of the pleaser and step into the role of the self-respecting. This shift is powerful, because now your boundary is not dependent on their understanding. It exists because you exist. It stands because you stand. And no argument can dismantle a boundary rooted in self-worth. Boundaries enforced in silence carry an aura. People feel them without needing a speech. It is in the way you pause before responding. It is in the way you stop over-explaining. It is in the way you calmly leave the table where respect is no longer served. Silence here is not weakness, it is sovereignty. It is your quiet declaration, my energy is sacred. Access is earned, not owed. Let's be real. When you defend your boundary with arguments, you drain yourself. You try to convince them why your needs matter. But those committed to misunderstanding, you will never understand. That's why the strongest boundaries are the quietest. No debate, no performance, just action. And over time, people learn. They may not respect your words, but they cannot ignore your silence. Boundaries are not about pushing others away. They are about pulling yourself back into alignment. They are not walls to block love. They are gates to protect peace. And the beauty of silent boundaries is that they require no approval. You don't need permission to rest. You don't need permission to say no. You don't need permission to protect your soul. Boundaries are self-love turned into structure. So remember this. Boundaries defended in arguments are fragile, but boundaries enforced in silence are unbreakable. Next time someone crosses the line, don't waste your breath explaining. Let your energy speak. Let your absence speak. Let your calm withdrawal speak. Because in the end, the strongest sentence you'll ever say is the one you never spoke. Chapter 7. The confusion of stillness. Chaos survives because it's predictable. The pattern is simple. He hurts you. You react. The cycle continues. That reaction is the oxygen his ego breathes. The more you cry, argue, explain, the more he feels alive. This is the hidden economy of manipulation. Your pain funds his control. But here's the secret Jung hinted at. If you break that rhythm, if you disrupt that pattern, the entire system collapses. He expects chaos. You give calm. He expects drama. You give presence. He expects your tears. You give indifference. This reversal shakes him to his core, because manipulators don't know how to handle stillness. They know how to fight with fire, but they don't know how to stand in front of water. Your calmness drowns his game. Your silence becomes a storm he cannot predict. And that unpredictability is the deepest form of power. Understand this. Stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is not passive. Stillness is a decision. It is you saying, I will not let chaos live rent-free in my body anymore. The confusion he feels is only the echo of a game that has ended. Because without your reaction, he is left standing in front of himself, naked, exposed, with no script to follow. And that, my friend, terrifies him more than any scream ever could. One woman shared her story. Her partner insulted her appearance during an argument, expecting tears. Instead, she simply looked at him with calm eyes and walked away. That silence echoed in the room like thunder. He was prepared for drama, ready to play his role as the dominant one. But the absence of reaction forced him to meet his own insecurity head-on. That moment of stillness was a mirror he could not escape. And here's the paradox Jung pointed out. You don't do this to manipulate him. You do it to free yourself. Your stillness is not about confusing him. That's just a side effect. The real purpose is to reclaim your center, to return to yourself, to say, my emotions belong to me, not to your games. The confusion he feels is his problem. The peace you feel is your liberation. That's the true win. Psychologically, stillness is like cutting the power supply. The drama machine needs electricity, your energy. Without it, the lights go out, the stage goes dark, the performance ends, and in that silence, he is forced to realize you no longer belong to his theater. Jung would call this individuation, breaking free from the collective script and choosing to stand in your own authenticity. The confusion of stillness is powerful, because it flips the dynamic. In chaos, he controls you. In stillness, you control yourself. And when you control yourself, no one else can control you. This is not about revenge. This is not about teaching him a lesson. This is about teaching yourself that your peace is sacred, and no one has the right to steal it. That realization is where true freedom begins. So the next time chaos knocks on your door, don't open it with reaction. Open it with silence. Open it with calm. Open it with stillness. Because when you do, the confusion you create is not manipulation. It's transformation. He loses control. You gain clarity. He is left in chaos. You return to peace. And that right there is the highest victory, not over him, but over yourself. Chapter 8. The Art of Invisibility. Sometimes the most powerful move is to vanish, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Jung taught us that the ego thrives on being fed, on attention, on reaction, on your emotional energy. When you withdraw all of it, you become invisible to his games. And invisibility is terrifying to manipulators because it starves them of control. They cannot fight what they cannot see. They cannot dominate what they cannot reach. Invisibility doesn't mean disappearing from life. It means disappearing from his battlefield. You stop playing the role he wrote for you. You stop showing up to his drama. Instead, you redirect your presence toward yourself. You become visible in your own world, in your healing, in your growth, in your silence. To him, you are gone. To yourself, you are finally present. That is the paradox of invisibility, absent in his eyes, reborn in your own. Think about it. When you stop replying to his late-night texts, when you stop reacting to his provocations, when you stop chasing closure that will never come, you are practicing invisibility. And every act of non-response sends a silent message. You no longer own space in my life. This absence burns deeper than any insult, because he expected chaos, but what he got was nothing, and nothing is impossible to control. Jung would call this individuation, the process of stepping out of others' projections and becoming whole on your own. Invisibility is individuation in action. You refuse to carry his shadow anymore. You refuse to act out the parts of himself he projected onto you. You stop being the mirror he uses to avoid his own reflection. By withdrawing, you return his shadow back to him, and you walk away with your soul intact. One woman described it perfectly. He thought ignoring him was revenge, but it wasn't revenge, it was rebirth. When she stopped reacting, he panicked. He tried harder, sent longer messages, created more drama, but each time, her silence swallowed his noise. Eventually, he had no choice but to face himself. That's the art of invisibility. It doesn't destroy him directly. It destroys the stage he built to play on. Invisibility is not weakness. It is strategy. It's you saying, I don't need to win this fight, I simply refuse to be in it. This level of detachment confuses manipulators more than anything else. They expect anger, they expect negotiation, they expect tears, but they cannot handle a disappearing act. They cannot chase what has already walked away. That's why invisibility is not escape. It's elevation. The truth is, you don't need to explain your invisibility. You don't owe him a reason for your silence. You don't owe him a closure he never gave you. You don't owe him an answer to questions that were meant to keep you small. The act itself is the explanation. Your withdrawal is your final boundary. Your absence is your strongest sentence. And your silence is the full stop at the end of a toxic chapter. So remember this, invisibility is not about him at all, it's about you. It's about reclaiming the energy you once wasted, about walking out of the play you never auditioned for, about refusing to be defined by someone else's chaos. Invisibility is the art of becoming untouchable. He may never understand it, he may never admit it, but deep down, he will feel it. Because nothing confuses the manipulator more than the power of your quiet disappearance. Chapter 9. The Rise of Inner Power. Every downfall carries within it a seed of transformation. Jung believed that the darkest nights of the soul are not punishments, but invitations to rise into a new version of yourself. The heartbreak you faced, the betrayal you endured, the silence you received, all of it is the fire meant to burn away illusions. Pain was never the end of your story. It was the beginning of your awakening. When he hurt you, he thought he was breaking you. But what he didn't realize is that breaking a woman like you does not destroy her. It forges her. Just like fire purifies gold, suffering purifies the soul. Each tear you shed was not weakness. Each night you lay awake was not wasted. They were the training grounds of your spirit, and now you are not the same person who once begged for love. You are someone stronger, someone wiser, someone untouchable. This is the rise of inner power, the power he never expected, the power he cannot control. He expected you to stay small. He expected you to stay broken. But you chose a different path. You chose silence over chaos. You chose boundaries over begging. You chose dignity over drama. And that choice is what turns ordinary women into extraordinary forces. Jung called this individuation, becoming your true self no matter the cost. Look closely at your own journey. At first you thought his approval defined you. You thought his love gave you value. But slowly, painfully, you discovered the truth. Value is not borrowed. Value is owned. And when you finally understood this, everything shifted. Suddenly you didn't need his attention to feel alive. You didn't need his validation to feel worthy. You discovered that the light you were searching for was never in him. It was always in you. The rise of inner power is not loud. It doesn't announce itself with revenge posts or angry words. It grows quietly. It grows in the mornings you get up even when your heart feels heavy. It grows in the walks you take alone, breathing peace instead of chaos. It grows in the way you stop answering disrespect with explanations and start answering it with silence. This quiet strength is what makes you unstoppable, because strength rooted in dignity never fades. And here's the paradox. The moment you rise, he feels the fall. He begins to sense that the power he once had is gone. He feels the absence of your energy, the emptiness of your silence, the sting of your boundaries. And this confuses him more than any argument ever could. He thought he wrote the final chapter of your story. But the truth is, his exit was only the prologue of your transformation. The rise of inner power is sacred because it doesn't just change how you deal with him. It changes how you deal with life itself. Once you taste the strength of silence, you will never waste words again. Once you feel the dignity of boundaries, You will never beg again. Once you stand in your own presence, you will never collapse for approval again. This is liberation. This is mastery. This is becoming who you truly are. So let the world misunderstand you. Let him remain confused by your stillness, because your life is no longer about proving your worth to someone else. Your life is about living in the fullness of your own worth. Jung said it best. I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. And now you choose to become powerful. You choose to become free. You choose to rise. And that rise, my friend, is the real ending and the real beginning. Chapter 10. The final shift, from victim to creator. At the beginning of this journey, pain made you feel like a victim. He hurt you. He betrayed you. He broke promises. And your mind whispered, "Why me? What did I do wrong?" But Carl Jung revealed that staying in victimhood is the greatest prison. Because when you see yourself as powerless, you unconsciously hand over your destiny to others. The final shift begins the moment you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" That question alone transforms suffering into power. Jung believed that the unconscious controls us until we make it conscious. Every reaction, every desperate message, every breakdown was not weakness, it was programming. But once you see the pattern, you are no longer its prisoner. Suddenly, heartbreak becomes a mirror. His betrayal reveals your hidden strength. His silence awakens your inner voice. His rejection forces you to find acceptance within yourself. This is the sacred alchemy of suffering. The wound is not an ending, it is an initiation. Think of your journey now. You have walked through fire. You have learned silence, you have set boundaries, you have withdrawn, you have conserved your energy. Each step was preparing you for this, the rise into creation. When you stop reacting to life, you begin creating life. And this is where true power is born, because the one who once begged for love now builds love within themselves. The one who once chased approval now walks in self-respect. The victim transforms into the creator. Here lies the paradox. You no longer need him, but that very independence confuses him. He expected you to collapse without his presence. Instead, you expanded. He thought his absence would break you. Instead, it freed you. This reversal is the essence of Jung's teaching, that individuation, becoming whole, comes not from clinging to others, but from returning to yourself. And once you taste this wholeness, you will never settle for half love again. The final shift also means mastering your energy. Every text you didn't send, every argument you didn't join, every insult you didn't answer, these were not losses, they were victories. Victories of self-control, victories of self-respect, victories of silence. And these victories built you into someone who is no longer shaped by chaos, but by choice. That's the mark of a creator, the ability to design life not from fear, but from vision. This transformation is not about revenge. It's not about making him regret. It's not about proving anything to the world. It's about living from a higher state of being. Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And that's exactly what you've done. You stopped looking outward for validation. You turned inward for truth. And in that awakening, you discovered the only person you truly needed was the one staring back in the mirror. Now imagine the power of this shift in every part of your life. Relationships no longer define you. You define them. Heartbreak no longer destroys you. It rebuilds you. Silence no longer scares you. It protects you. Boundaries no longer isolate you. They elevate you. You are not who you were at the beginning of this journey. You are reborn, stronger, freer, and untouchable. This is the highest evolution of pain, the transformation into power. So here is the truth you must carry forward. You are not the victim of your story. You are the author of it. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. And the choice is already made. You chose to rise. You chose silence over chaos. You chose dignity over drama. You chose to create rather than collapse. And now, nothing and no one can take that away. Because once a soul awakens to its own power, it never forgets. Chapter 11. The Rebirth of Self. Every heartbreak feels like an ending. He leaves, and it feels like your world collapses. The mind whispers, "This is the death of me." But Jung taught us that death is not always physical. Sometimes it is symbolic, and every symbolic death is followed by a rebirth. The old version of you, the one who begged, explained, and overgave, is gone. But from the ashes, a stronger, clearer, freer version of you is born. Rebirth is not sudden. It comes quietly. It begins in the moments when you choose silence instead of chaos. It deepens in the nights you sleep peacefully instead of waiting for his message. It grows in the mornings you look in the mirror and see not a victim, but a survivor. This is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new one. Pain didn't break you. Pain rebuilt you into something far more powerful. Think of the phoenix, a bird that burns in its own fire only to rise again, brighter and stronger. Jung's philosophy mirrors this myth. The destruction of the ego creates space for the true self to emerge. Your suffering was not meaningless. It was the fire that cleared illusions, the fire that burned away dependency, the fire that carved the path to your individuality. And now, from that fire, you rise like the phoenix you always were. The rebirth of self means you no longer measure your worth by his actions. His silence does not define you. His rejection does not limit you. His betrayal does not destroy you. Instead, you look inward. You discover the strength of solitude, the beauty of boundaries, the currency of energy, and the confusion of stillness. These are not just survival tools. They are the foundations of your new identity. And here's the paradox. The very pain that was supposed to shatter you becomes the reason for your awakening. He thought he ended you, but in reality, he introduced you to yourself. Without his betrayal, you may never have discovered the depth of your own resilience. Without his absence, you may never have realized the power of your own presence. This is the hidden gift of suffering. It forces you back to yourself. Rebirth also means freedom. You are no longer chained to someone else's approval. You no longer beg for validation. You no longer explain your worth. You carry it silently, like an aura, and people feel it before you speak. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And now through pain you have arrived at that privilege. You are not who you were before, you are more. This rebirth confuses him. He expected you to stay broken, to stay small, to stay begging, but instead you withdrew, you rose, you became untouchable. And while he may never admit it, he feels it. He feels the silence, he feels the absence, he feels the power he no longer controls. But here's the truth, this journey was never about him. It was always about you, your awakening, your transformation, your rebirth. So stand tall in this new version of yourself. Do not apologize for your silence. Do not justify your boundaries. Do not explain your absence. The act itself is enough. Because the woman who rises from pain no longer seeks permission to exist. She exists fully, fiercely, unapologetically. And that, my friend, is the final transformation. You didn't just survive heartbreak. You transcended it. And now, nothing and no one can take away the rebirth of your true self. Conclusion. The silence that revealed your power. In the beginning, you thought his betrayal was the end of you. You thought his silence defined your worth. You thought his absence would leave you empty. But Carl Jung's wisdom flipped the truth on its head. It wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Through pain, you discovered resilience. Through silence, you found dignity. Through withdrawal, you uncovered freedom. And through stillness, you rose into your true self. The world may still misunderstand you. He may still remain confused by your calm. But none of that matters anymore, because the woman who begged has disappeared. In her place stands a woman who owns her silence, protects her energy, and radiates her worth without saying a word. And that, my friend, is the highest transformation, not proving, not chasing, not explaining, but simply being. Jung said it best. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And today, you have chosen to become power. The choice is yours, Carl Jung once said. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The question is, will you keep reacting blindly, or will you rise into awareness? If this message touched your soul, don't let it fade. Share your story in the comments, in your silence, your strength, your rebirth. Hit the like button, not for me, but as a declaration that you choose dignity over drama. Subscribe so you never miss another reminder that your power is already within you. Remember, this is not just a video. This is your mirror. And the reflection staring back at you is stronger than the storm, greater than the pain, and freer than the past. So the choice is yours. Remain in the cycle or rise into yourself.